Hello everyone, it's your favorite talking eggplant, and today we're playing more Blackberry Honey. I believe this is part 4, and I have been working on the audio, so might sound a little different, probably gonna sound different for a while. Anyway, let's get back into it. Lorena inhaled and took a step backwards, then 2, then 3. 3 steps seemed like a sensible distance to her. It wasn't so very far she looked foolish trying to continue the conversation, but not so close Tahua's presence could unsettle her. I want to talk to you about something, actually. You do? Yes, about what happened a couple weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, How curious. Did something occur between the pair of us? Tahua blinked, one finger against her lower lip. She was quite the convincing actress. She could have given Emily Soldine a run for her money. If that's a real person, I don't know who she is. Not that Lorena had ever seen Emily Soldine perform. She'd never been to London before in her life. You know something did. Surely you remember what you said to me. Not everything. My memory isn't that good, and this was a while ago. Well, you should know how you made me feel, at least. Silly Laurie, how could I possibly know how you feel? You didn't tell me, and contrary to popular belief, I cannot read minds. You should have been able to assume. But assumptions can often be wrong. That's why I was hoping to run into you, so I could confirm my hypothesis. Okay, nerd. What are you, a detective? Unfortunately not. I'm just a mere maid. I thought that much would be obvious. Lorena rolled her eyes. She told herself she wasn't going to punch Tahua, but the urge was growing stronger and stronger by the second. You are impossible. Just like what that sister said in the last episode, huh? I suppose I should take that as a compliment? Take it however you want. I don't care. I was under the impression, however, that you might want to apologize. And whatever gave you that idea? Because you upset me. Ah, so I did upset you after all. That's what I feared. Yes, you did. You seemed to imply, when you removed the thorn, that I was the one to blame for getting hurt. I was simply trying to help, Laurie. You helped me, yes, but you acted like you didn't want to, like I was getting in your way. Well, I never asked for your help. I didn't want it. You forced it onto me, then expected me to fawn over you with gratitude. I don't see why I should thank you, and I'm not going to. Lorena scuffed the floor with the tip of her shoe, her face twisted. If you dislike me, I don't know why you poked your nose into my affairs in the first place. We both have been happier if you left me alone. We would have both been happier if you let me alone. I can't read, apparently. Honestly, the young maid sighed. All her irritation towards the older woman had accumulated over the past few weeks, like puss inside a boil. Now it finally had the chance to spill out, and oh, how much of it there was. Bro, just make out already. She was even more upset than she had thought. Maybe this was in part because of how Lady Constance had toyed with her not 5 minutes ago. Could maybe make it worse. Lorena couldn't take her anger out on the small girl who derived such pleasure from her pain, but she could take her anger out on Tahua. She felt like she had a right to be angry with her. Tahua really was an exasperating woman. I just don't understand you. Evidently. If you did understand me, you wouldn't say such foolish things. So my feelings are foolish, are they? Please don't put words into my mouth. I never said your feelings were foolish, only that you are acting foolish. You're splitting hairs. There's no real difference. I beg to differ. I read that last one thinking it was Tawa. My bad. If you would pause to think, you'd realize that I don't dislike you, Lori. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You act as though you do. You can believe whatever you want, but you're ignoring a few key details. If I hated you, why would I have pulled out the thorn, and why would I have caught you when you fell? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I don't understand how you think. I bet you only did it to make me feel bad. Oh dear. Do I really seem that heartless? To be honest, yes. My. Tawa held her hands together at her front. It was an unusually humble gesture coming from the older maid, and it made her seem slightly more approachable than usual. A little less overbearing. I apologize if I hurt your feelings then. It wasn't my intention. Then what was? How did you think I was going to react? It didn't cross my mind, to be honest. You mean you just say things and you don't care about who you hurt? That's even worse. So upsetting people out of neglect is more heinous than upsetting them out of malice? The end result is the same, but I suppose we all look at things differently. Lorena bristled. She didn't have the time to listen to this woman and her convoluted words. If Tahua truly wanted to apologize, she should have done so, and let Lorena go. They didn't need to draw this conversation out any longer. It was uncomfortable enough as it was. Right. Well, you've said your piece, so that should be the end of it. You want to be rid of me? I do, very much so. That's rather sad. You'll recover soon enough, I'm sure. Perhaps this is a sorry state of affairs. I realize I've offended you, but I didn't mean to, I just... Tahua frowned. Oh well, I suppose it's all water under the bridge? Fine. I won't talk to you if you don't talk to me. I suppose being ignored is better than being despised. Alright then. Tahua bent down and retrieved the broom that Lorena had dropped. Here you go. Take it. Thanks. Lorena wanted to sound unconcerned, but she couldn't. For some reason, her voice was trembling. It was further proof she couldn't spend time in Tahua's company. The older maid was far too difficult. Maybe even dangerous. Ooh. Lorena couldn't read her, no matter how she attempted. Tahua's eyes were impenetrable. Her small smile so well crafted it might as well have been a mirage. Once more, Lorena thought of Emily Soldine. She shook her head. Even though Tahua was an accomplished actress, she was no Emily Soldine. She wasn't British enough. Okay, Lorena, can we just calm down with all the... the weird comments about her not being English? Maybe that was the reason Lorena felt so uneasy in her company. Lorena couldn't understand the older woman. Therefore, she couldn't trust her. Wasn't that common sense? It seemed logical enough to her. Why is Lorena making it all about her name is foreign, she's not English enough or something? It's realistically, none of that should really matter, you know? Alright, if you're happy, I suppose I'm happy. I'll try to refrain from making unnecessary comments in the future. You do that. I will. I can control myself. I hope I shall see you later, Lori. And Tahua left. Lorena watched as Tahua's long skirts fluttered around her legs with each footstep. It was only some 5 seconds later, when sense had finally returned to her, that Lorena remembered to mutter, "Don't call me Lori." Later that night. Lorena? Yes, Ada, what is it? Oh, I'm sorry. Ada shrank back, her head bowed, and for good reason. Lorena's tone was a good deal sharper than usual, and Ada was unused to being addressed so coldly by her closest friend. Yeah, Lorena, why you talking to Ada like that? Lorena sighed, massaging her temples with her fingers. She knew she was being unfair, unreasonable even. Though she had suffered through a remarkably rotten day, it wasn't Ada's fault. Ada had nothing to do with Lady Constance's temper tantrums, Pauline's petty revenge, or Talwa's complex and confusing mind games. Ada was completely innocent. Ain't that right? You don't need to apologize. I'm the one who's in the wrong. But, it looked like you were busy. I was busy, but I can always set some time aside for you. Whoa! Why does your smile look so creepy? Lorena put her quill away. She had been in the middle of writing a letter to her mother, but she wasn't entirely sure what to write. Words failed her. Talking to Ada might help her put her thoughts in order. What did you want to talk about? Well, it's about the ghost. Did you happen to hear it again? It's even worse. Lottie told me she saw it. Oh, she did she? Why do you look mad? Though Lorena was rather fond of Lottie, it was hard not to be fond of her. She didn't regard her as a trustworthy source of information. Lottie was fanciful to a fault, and she loved both fairy tales and ghost stories. Often, she made no distinction between the two. Yeah, she was out in the hallway last night, bolting the windows and drawing the curtains when she saw a what? A figure in the garden. Was it a ghostly figure? She said it was quite ghostly. It wasn't Joe the gardener? No! Lottie said it was very tiny, just like a child, and it was wearing a long, flowing nightdress. Did she manage to look at its face? She didn't get a chance. She was so very excited, she said she passed out for a few moments. That sounds like Lottie. And when she came to, the figure was nowhere to be found. Very mysterious. Indeed. And Lottie is convinced it was a ghost? I don't see what else it could have been. Lorena sighed. She wasn't convinced herself, but she was the kind of person who refused to believe in anything unless she could see it with her own two eyes. With a yawn, the young maid began to divest herself of her uniform. She was growing tired, and it was a struggle for her to keep her eyes open. As was to be expected, Ada politely averted her eyes. Is Ada a girl lover too? Lorena folded her uniform neatly, then put on her night clothes. When she stretched, the fabric strained against her chest. She probably needed a new nightgown. This one was several years old, but she could hardly afford it. Oh, she can't afford to buy a new one, that's what I meant. I wonder, why would the ghost of a small child haunt the rose gardens of Bly? Lottie said maybe a murder had taken place. Of course she'd think that. Lottie loves drama. Speaking of which, where was Lottie? It was almost 10 o'clock. Perhaps she was with the two scullery maids and maybe the cook. Irritable though she was, the cook had a rare soft spot for the dreamy Swiss maiden, telling them about her close encounter with the supernatural. As for Pauline and Isobel, they had been summoned to see Miss Smith an hour or so ago. Lorena didn't know what they were doing, and quite frankly, she didn't care. It's none of your business anyway. Lottie said, perhaps the previous owner of Bly was a scoundrel, and he sired an illegitimate child with a mistress. And then, when he could no longer bear the shame of raising such a child, he murdered her and buried her body in the rose garden. That's right. Does Lottie have any proof? I don't know about proof, but she made it sound very plausible. She's a natural-born storyteller. Don't pay her any heed. But the ghost... I'm sure it will be fine. Don't worry about things too much, Ada. It was probably her imagination. But Lorena was unable to complete her sentence. That's because, at that moment, Pauline and Isobel entered the room. Goodness, Miss Smith can talk. I feel absolutely exhausted. I always feel exhausted, and my poor hands are frozen. Why did we have to put out the fires? It's such a chore. I barely have enough strength to get changed. They talk as if they're like the same person split into two personalities. I can't undo the buttons of my blouse. To be young again. Pauline cast a furtive look at Lorena. Her lips were curled into a smile, but her eyes were cold and hard. Lorena held her gaze, unflinching. Was this some kind of challenge? Lorena knew how Pauline felt about her, and Pauline had been more explicit about her feelings than as usual. Lorena knew how Pauline felt about her, and Pauline had been more explicit about her feelings than usual as of late. The comment from a few days hence continued to weigh on Lorena's mind. Slut. That's how the Finnish say fun, I think. Or end. Something like that. You don't realize how lucky you are, Lorena. How lucky am I, exactly? Or, how am I lucky, exactly? She certainly didn't feel lucky. You're still young. Not yet in your 20th year. A beautiful rose just ripe for the picking. Ew. Or trampling. I beg your pardon? How long had Effie been in the room anyway? I don't know, Effie's just kind of there. Effie was so quiet, Lorena often forgot she even existed. But when Effie did open her mouth to speak, what came out of it was always, invariably, the moon looks sad tonight. She's so me. Bizarre. Putting the moon to one side for now, Pauline's lip curled. You have a bright future ahead of you, Lorena. You're not so very bad looking, and you have a body most men would kill for. Most women would kill for it too. I'm so cold my hands won't stop shaking. It's a waste that you should while away your life employed as a mere maid. Do you not agree? Your pretty hands will start to seize up just like mine. Believe it or not, even I was young once, but years upon years of hard work takes it out on you. Lorena narrowed her eyes, her lips pursed. Excuse me, but I'm not entirely sure what you're trying to say. Why, it's simple. If I was a pretty young thing like you, I wouldn't hesitate to use my feminine wiles on the opposite sex either, especially if it would make my job easier. I don't have any wiles, and if I did, I wouldn't know how to use them. Neither would I want to. That's what you say, but we know better. Hee. Lorena's back stiffened. She bit her lower lip. Why were they bringing this up again? It's a pity Lady Leonard doesn't have any handsome young sons. If only she had, that would be your ticket to a better life. Lorena turned her head away. Her cheeks were flushed bright red with shame. I must say, it's brave you tried to seduce that Pickering boy. Incredibly bold. It's a pity it went so very poorly. I didn't. That's what you say, but the evidence is stacked against you. Why else were you dismissed from your previous job so abruptly? I don't think Lorena did anything wrong. Shush, Ada. The adults are talking. Yes. Ada looked down at her intertwined fingers. Her lower lip trembled. Despite being an adult herself, she was easily cowed. Ada wasn't a girl made for debates. She had a tendency to fold in on herself like a stack of cards, though Lorena had to give her points for trying. Still, it's awfully brazen of you to try and deny your crimes. To continue going to church, to talk to us like we're equals, to even look us in the eye. When you're nothing more than a common whore. First slut, now whore. What next? Keeping secrets was impossible in a place like this. The servants lived far too closely together in their dirty, dusty, draughty quarters. It was only natural that other maids would know. Everybody had heard the rumors about Hartwell and Lorena's sudden dismissal, and Arthur Pickering. But Lorena didn't like to think about that. Not now. In fact, she was rather shocked to discover she would much rather to think about Tawa. The 15th of April, Friday. A few days later, Lorena found herself in the kitchen. She was in the midst of cleaning out a large tin pot for the cook beneath a stream of steady water. Though Lady Leonard employed a couple of scullery maids to aid the cook with her chores, they were often indisposed with miscellaneous tasks. The scullery maids didn't sleep with the housemaids beneath the attic. They had even smaller, shabbier quarters that were closer to the kitchens. Lorena didn't know the scullery maids very well, and she couldn't remember their names. There was one girl with thin brown hair who might have been a Bessie, and perhaps the wiry red-haired girl was Eliza? But Lorena didn't know. Technically speaking, Lorena wasn't supposed to work in the kitchens. She wasn't a scullery maid, but a housemaid, a rank or two below Tawa on the social hierarchy. Though Lorena could sweep carpets, polish stairwells, and light almost any fireplace, scouring pots and pans was not her forte. Unfortunately, the cook had asked for Lorena's assistance by name, and Lorena couldn't disobey a direct order from the cook. Interesting. The cook was an irritable, moon-faced woman, but she was one of the most senior staff members Bly possessed, other than Mr. Lester and Miss Smith. Lorena washed the pot dutifully, soaping it clockwise with the flannel. Her hands were starting to tire, and she had no idea how long she'd been working, but it certainly felt like long enough. Her hair was getting in her eyes. She couldn't pause to brush the loose tendrils behind her ears. She'd done that before and learned the hard way that introducing carbolic soap to her unprotected eyeballs was a rather poor idea. As Lorena worked, soap suds scuttling along about her, she happened to look out of the window. The sky was a clear, bright blue, and the rose gardens lay beyond the kitchen. The young maiden could make it out, not so very far away. Two familiar figures. Effie and Lottie. Lorena wasn't sure why they were in the garden. It wasn't Monday and there was no laundry to be done. The voices of the two girls drifted to Lorena on the spring breeze. When she strained her ear, Lorena was able to catch most of their conversation. The daffodils are so beautiful. I could be back in Andermatt. You always say that. I know. I fear I'm dreadfully simple-minded, but I cannot help myself. I do love my hometown so. How cute. You really think so? Mm-hmm. Oh, thank goodness. Sometimes I worry I must annoy you all with my ramblings. You don't. Well, thank you. Though I do wonder. It is such a beautiful day, and yet I can hardly believe amongst these old walls there lurks an ancient specter. Just thinking about it makes me tremble. What if it were to possess me in the night? How would that feel? Like this? Effie caught hold of Lottie's middle and began to assault her with her fingers. Her digits scrabbled at Lyslot's tummy, beneath her neck and underneath her arms. The blonde maid soon doubled up, squealing. Let me go! But I'm possessing you. Effie, I did not know English girls were so touchy. We aren't, not usually. You're special. Lorena looked at the cook curiously. Do you know what they're doing outside? The cook set down her rolling pin. She had been in the middle of preparing Lady Constance's mid-morning snack and gave Lorena a withering look. Why are you asking me that? No real reason. I just thought as they're right outside the kitchen, you might have sent them on some kind of errand. And what if I have? Well, haven't you been here long enough to know you shouldn't bother me when I'm working? Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting you. As you should be. The cook harumphed, her large bosom heaving. She wasn't a particularly old woman, in her 30s, Lorena assumed, but her bosom was impressively large, and it was already starting to sag. What are you talking about? Sometimes Lorena wondered if her breasts were the real reason why the cook always looked so po-faced. Dragging them around with her must have been incredibly tiresome. Maybe that was why the cook often asked the housemaids for help, though they weren't supposed to work in the kitchens. Her breasts had damaged her back, and despite her relative youth, she had difficulty keeping the kitchen in order on her own. Lorena hoped her own breasts wouldn't weigh on her like that. They hurt her quite enough as it was already. In 20 years' time, or even 10, would her spine still be able to withstand the pressure? If you must know, I asked those daft girls to pick some blackberries for me. Blackberries? Hey! That's right. You might know, seeing as you've not been here a whole year, but there's a thicket near the back of the garden. I always make blackberry jam during the springtime, and blackberry pies and blackberry tarts. Blackberry, you name it. Lady Constance is very fond of blackberries. Oh, I see. It made sense. Blackberries, though sweet, had an initial tartness when you first bite into them. Their prickly, off-putting palate suited Lady Constance perfectly. They're supposed to be picking blackberries at any rate, but it seems they've gotten distracted. I suppose so. Lorena frowned. She felt a bit guilty for tattling on Effie and Lottie, whom she liked quite a lot, but she didn't suppose the cook would be too hard on them. For all her bluster, she was a good woman at heart, and she seemed to regard Lottie as a surrogate daughter. That's cute. The cook was forever summoning Lottie to the kitchen and giving her easy jobs. Oi! The cook yelled quite suddenly, making Lorena jump. She was so loud, the pots and pans in the kitchen quaked. The two young scullery maids, Bessie and Eliza, were those their names? Tensed. You two! You're not getting paid to stand around yakking. As if by magic, the two maids in the rose garden parted. Though they were a few paces away, Lorena could see the abashed smile on Lottie's face quite plainly. What does that mean, abashed? I'm sorry, I'll start right away. You do that, Lottie, or I'll tell Lady Leonard. Oh, I wouldn't want that. Let us go, Effie. And Lottie took hold of Effie's hand. Lorena watched the two of them, her head tilted to one side. She was more curious than ever. Had Lottie and Effie always been that close? Later that day. Oh, maid, there you are. You know, I do have a name. What was that? Nothing. Lady Constance sighed and set down her slim volume of French fables. It appeared to be the same volume she had been poring over a few days prior. It was really curious, Lorena mused, that whenever Lady Constance was assailed with a sudden urge for sugar during her studies, it was invariably when she was supposed to be studying French. And what mid-morning snack do you have for me today? Biscuits, miss. I hope for your sake they're nicer than the coconut macaroons. The macaroons that Lady Constance didn't even try. I can't say for sure. I haven't sampled them myself. Naturally, that would be the most uncouth. I thought you might say that. The cook told me they had a fancy foreign name, but... Lorena looked at the plate in her hand. It was a delicate willow-patterned piece, quite unlike the chipped ceramic... Okay. Lorena looked at the plate in her hands. It was a delicate willow-patterned piece, quite unlike the chipped ceramics that the maids ate from. This plate alone was probably worth more than a month of Lorena's meager salary. On the plate arranged by the cook's careful hands were a handful of sables à la poche, butter-based French biscuits with centuries of strawberry jam. Lorena didn't know the correct terminology for these sweet treats, and neither could she have been able to pronounce it if she did, so she handled the situation as best she could. She bowed her head in apology. I can't quite seem to remember it. As expected, you really are useless, Lady Constance tutted. Well, at least let me see the mystery biscuits. I'll decide for myself what I think. Of course. Lorena obliged, setting the plate on the table. Lady Constance pinched one of the biscuits between her thumb and forefinger and bit into it delicately. She didn't spill a single crumb. Lorena couldn't help but be impressed. Though she didn't like Lady Constance, she had to give praise where praise was due. Lady Constance, despite her 12 years of age, really was elegant. Now, they probably drilled that into her head at like the age of 4. Far more elegant than Lorena. Lady Constance chewed for a while, letting the sweetness of the biscuit dissolve across her tongue before she swallowed. Her delicate throat, pale as a swan's hide, convulsed. Lorena, you always have such a way with words. I suppose they are satisfactory. Thank goodness for that. If you're pleased with your snack, then I shall leave these here. If you need anything else, please give me a call. I will be in the kitchen. Lorena dropped a neat curtsy first to Lady Constance, then to Miss Hime. She was already crossing the carpet, her shoes falling against the floorboards with a series of dull thuds when... Oh, but these are sables à la poche. C'est magnifique. Miss Hime's voice made Lorena halt. Lorena sucked in a breath. Slowly, very slowly, she turned about. Lady Constance was frozen in place, a biscuit pinched between her thumb and forefinger. She had been in the process of bringing it to her lips, but Miss Hime's exclamation had stopped her. The girl's eyes flashed dangerously. What was that, Hime? Oh, I was merely saying that these delightful biscuits are in French. Are French. Is that so? Yeah, they come from Sable-sur-Sarthe, but they are popular all around the country. I used to eat from them when I was a young girl. Miss Hime laughed softly, tucking a strand of loose hair beneath the shell of her ear. Her bright red hair. It contrasted something fierce against her creamy skin. It made Miss Hime look even whiter than she truly was. In fact, these biscuits might be even more French than I am. And what makes you say that? You know how it is, Mademoiselle Constance. I worked for 3 years in Palermo. Did I not tell you? Oh yes, you did. Did you forget? I didn't forget. I simply didn't care to remember. Mademoiselle, you have such a wicked tongue on you. You should be careful, or it will turn black. Lillian used to tell me that too. Then you should have listened to her. If I had listened to her, there would have been no reason for Mother to fire her. Are you stupid? Well, Miss Hime's pale cheeks flushed. 2 twin apples blossomed beneath the surface of her skin. Once upon a time, Miss Hime's skin had been a healthy bronze hue. After being subjected to the dreary, rainy, drizzly English weather for more than 4 months, however, her skin had lost much of its shine. Or maybe it wasn't the weather. Maybe it was Lady Constance. All of a sudden, I've rather lost my appetite. Lady Constance turned her nose up at the plate of biscuits, her hands planted on her lips. If you like them so much, Hime, you may have them, but I won't touch a single crumb. Oh, mademoiselle, why must you be so difficult? These biscuits are truly delicious, I promise. I swear, as a genuine Frenchwoman. And in case you hadn't realized, I am sick and tired of French. But I'm not a French child. I'm an English one. There's no reason for me to study your language or eat your food or even converse with your people. There's a lot of racism going on around here, bro. My people, mademoiselle? Yes, your people. You're not like me, and I'm not like you. And I don't like you and your silly, simpering ways. You try to get on my good side, telling me stories about your childhood, like you and I are the same. But we are not the same. We are not friends. Lillian might have been a stick in the mud, but at least she had a basic understanding of social etiquette. She never once overstepped her boundaries. Even this stupid maid would be preferable company to you. Mademoiselle, Enough! Lady Constance got to her feet. The legs of her chair scraped across the floor. The sound was grating. It made Lorena wince. I'm tired. I'm going to retire to my bedroom. But your lessons are over. They are not over until I say they are over. Oh, so now you wish to be a responsible adult, do you? Well, it's rather too late for that. Mademoiselle, I am not a mademoiselle. I am an English lady. Until you start addressing me by my correct title, I refuse to sit down and go through a single French verb with you ever again. But what shall I say to your mother? Tell her you're incompetent and that I want nothing to do with you. That should settle matters. Dang. So saying, the young girl exited the drawing room. The door slammed shut behind her. Dust mote swirled about in the air, unsettled by Lady Constance's performance. Lorena could see them if she squinted, barely visible in the golden sunlight that streamed through the open window. The velveteen curtains fluttered in the breeze. Miss Ebi-hime, meanwhile, groaned. She ran a hand through her rose-red hair. Oh goodness. What am I to do with her? She sniffled. It sounded for a few moments that she was on the verge of tears, but upon remembering Lorena, Miss Ebi-hime sniffed and the moment passed. I apologize. I did not mean to drag you into such an unpleasant situation. Oh, it's quite alright. It was probably my fault. I'm not sure how, but according to Lady Constance, most things are my fault, so... oh dear. A wan smile tugged at the corners of Miss Ebi-hime's lips. It wasn't much of a smile, but it was something. I do worry about Mademoiselle. She can be docile at times, but she flies into a rage at the smallest of provocations, and always she seems to be scheming. You haven't had the pleasure of meeting any other girls like her? Oh goodness gracious, no. None of my students in Palermo give me so much trouble, and Italians are supposed to be passionate. Passionate is one word for it. Oh, Mademoiselle. Miss Ebi-hime shook her head. It would be easy to dislike her, but I do pity the poor creature. You pity her? Why? I can't say for sure, but I've always had the idea that she can't be a very happy child. If she was happy, she wouldn't be so difficult. You might have a point. You, on the other hand, are a sweet girl indeed. I wonder why Mademoiselle always singles you out. Maybe it's because I'm the newest maid here. I try not to think about it too much, but when I picked up the plate of French biscuits that had caused so much chaos, it seems like such a waste. Indeed, they're good biscuits. French biscuits always are. It's a shame Lady Constance is too pig-headed to admit it. In the end, it's her loss. You know. A mischievous smile that somehow seemed quintessentially European tugged at the corners of Miss Ebi-hime's lips. Those biscuits would have to be thrown away otherwise, so you might as well help yourself. Oh no, I couldn't. But you can, I insist. It wouldn't be proper, I'm just a maid, and I'm inviting you to eat. As you said, it would be a horrible waste, and I so want to share my country with somebody who cares about it. Well, if you're so sure... Miss Aime didn't need to coerce Lorena any further. After a quick furtive glance behind her shoulder, the young maid finally decided to help herself. The biscuits were like nothing she had tasted before. They all but melted across her tongue, soft and sweet and so very, very delicious. The 17th of April, Sunday. Alright, I'm gonna end that there. Thank you so much for watching or even clicking on the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!